over synthetic division, and it's used to divide two functions. And synthetic division is easier than long division. It's less calculations, and it's just overall easier. So let's say we have the function 3x plus squared plus 4x minus 2 over x minus 1, and we want to divide this x minus 1 into the 3x squared plus 4x minus 2. So what the first step is to all synthetic division problems is to draw this half rectangle. Next, what we want over here, what number we want over here, is the opposite of this number over here. Meaning that to find what number goes over here, all we do is we set this denominator equal to 0. If we do that, we get x minus 1 equals 0, x equals 1. Same way, all we need to do is take the opposite of that negative 1, and we have a 1 over here as a number. What goes inside these are the coefficients of the different powers. Remember, this is x squared, this is x to the first, and this is x to the 0th power. So over here, we have to go in order, remember. So over here would be the coefficient of the x squared, which would be 3. Over the next space would be the coefficient of the x to the first, which is 4. And the last one would be the coefficient of x to the 0, which is negative 2. Now, when we begin synthetic division, the first step we want to do is always bring down the first number below the bar. Next, you want to multiply this number by this number and bring that over here. 1 times 3 is 3. And remember, you always add down the columns. So 4 plus 3 is 7. Same thing, you're taking this, you're multiplying it here. 1 times 7 is 7. And remember, adding down the columns, negative 2 plus 7 is 5. Now what we got here are the coefficients of the answer to this. Notice that we're dividing an x squared by an x if you just focus on these two terms. So we know that what results from this has to be an x to the first power. So immediately, I told you these are the coefficients. So this number is the remainder, and these two are the ones you want to focus on. So the 3 would be in front of the x to the first, and the 7 would be in front of the x to the 0. And remember, this is a reminder. Anytime there's a reminder, remember, put the remainder, put the 5 over the what you're dividing by. So it would be plus 5 over x minus 1. If you simplify this out, you get 3x plus 7. X is 0, it's 1, remember, so that stays as a constant, plus 5 over x minus 1. So remember, when we divided it, what we get out of it is the coefficients of the answer to this, and remember that the first thing is always one less power than the highest power in this problem, which is x squared. So this would be just x to the first. So the next problem is x squared minus 2 over x minus 1. And we need to simplify this and find what this equals. And remember, we're dividing this into this. So first step is to always draw the box, half the rectangle. Remember, what goes here is the opposite of the denominator. The opposite of the denominator is 1. Because if you plug in 1 for x, you get 0. So you have 1 over here. Remember, these are the coefficients. So take the coefficients of the x squared, which is 1. Now, since we can rewrite this numerator as x squared plus 0, x to the first minus 2, right? Because x to the first is x, 0 times that is 0, and we don't have an x term. So remember, anytime you're doing synthetic division, what goes inside, you have to include every single power going down, meaning from x squared, you have to include x squared, x to the first, and a constant. And in this case, over here, we're missing the x term, so we have to write it like this, so we know what the coefficients are. So the first coefficient is 1, the second is 0, and the constant we know is negative 2. So then we can begin our synthetic division. So remember, first term, all you do is bring it down, multiply this, bring that over there, that's a 1. Remember, add down the columns, 0 plus 1 is 1. Again, multiply. 1 times 1 is 1, bring it over here. Negative 2 plus 1 is negative 1. Remember, these are the coefficients of our answer. if we divide x squared by x, we get x. That means that this has to be the coefficient of x, that has to be a constant, and that has to be the remainder. So the answer is 1x to the first plus 1x to the 0th power minus, remember, it's always the remainder, over what we divided by x minus 1. Simplifying this out, we get x plus 1 minus 1 over x minus 1. The key thing to remember with synthetic division problems is to include all of the powers descending. So you cannot disclude the 0 or you would mess up the entire division. So our third problem and last one of the day is f of x equals x squared plus x plus 6 over x plus 2. And again, we want to simplify this and make it into an actual number. So what we do is, again, set up the synthetic division box. What goes in here is the opposite of the denominator. So what we do is we set the denominator equal to 0 and to solve for the x. X equals -2. So -2 goes over here. Then we write the coefficients. Keep in mind, this is x to the 0th power, this is x to the first power, so we have all the coefficients. So we can write 1, because it's just x squared, plus 1, because it's just x, plus 6, this is in front of the x to the 0th, and then we can begin a synthetic division. Remember, bring down the 1, multiply, bring down the 1, multiply, that gives us -2 over here, add down, we get -1, multiply, we get 2 over here, add down, sorry there's no plus over here, add down, get 8, remember, x squared divided by x is x, so our highest power here is x, that means this coefficient goes with x, this coefficient goes with x to the 0th power, and 8 is the remainder, so what we get is 1x to the first, because that's the highest power, plus minus 1x to the 0th power, plus, remember the remainder, over this, the bottom, x plus 2. Simplifying this out, we get x minus x to the 0th is 1, so x minus 1 plus 8 over x plus 2. So again, remember, when we do this, it's important to recognize that this coefficient goes with, logically, it goes with x squared divided by x, because that's what we would get, right? If you ignored all these terms and we just divided x squared by x, we would get x. That means this coefficient is for x, and the power less than x is x to the 0th power, which is 1. So this is the constant like we saw over there, and this is just a remainder. Guys, sorry, I just want to clarify something about the coefficients after we do the synthetic division. So I wanted to give you another problem, and this problem is f of x equals x cubed plus x squared plus 3x plus 4 over x minus 1. Again, what goes here is the opposite of that, so we know that's 1, since 1 minus 1 is 0. Again, we have to write the coefficients. Since we started with x cubed, we have 4 coefficients now. The coefficient of x cubed is 1, coefficient of x squared is 1, coefficient of x is 3. Remember, this is x to the 0th power, and this is x to the first power, and the coefficient of x to the 0th power is 4. Then we begin synthetic division. Remember, bring this 1 down, multiply, add, multiply, add, multiply, add, and now we have 4 coefficients. Remember, if we divide x cubed by x, we get x squared now. So this coefficient is the coefficient of x squared, this coefficient is the coefficient of x to the first, and this coefficient is the coefficient of x to the 0th power. Notice that how I figured out what power variable this was by simply dividing the highest power in the numerator to the highest power in the denominator. And that's all you need to do to determine what variable power this is going to be in front of. So the answer to this would be 1x squared, since x cubed over x is x squared, and the rest of them just descend one by one after that x squared. So the 2 would be plus 2x to the first, the 5 would be plus 5x to the 0, and the 9 would be a remainder, so remember it's plus 9 over what you're dividing by, x minus 1. This equals x squared plus 2x plus 5 plus 9 over x minus 1. And it kind of makes sense, because if you're multiplying this This x squared plus 2x plus 5, this x minus 1, you have to get an x cubed, right? Because you're multiplying x by x squared. And that's basically the entire thing behind why this 1 goes into the degree 1 less than an x cubed. Thank you guys for watching, and please comment and subscribe below.